Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon video. So today I'm going to be talking more about Special Booster 1.5, and we recently got some new and important information in regards to Special Booster 1.5 and its pull ratios. So recently, through some videos of people opening up booster boxes early on the internet, we learned that the pull rates are basically going to be the exact same in Special Booster 1.5 as they were in Special Booster 1.0. So this is a really big deal just because Special Booster 1.5 contains less cards and therefore will make it easier to pull the cards that you're looking for just because there's less cards that you could pull with the same types of pull rates. So the pull rate in Special Booster 1.0 was you were going to get 7 SRs and 1 to 2 hits per box, and it looks like that's going to be the same in Special Booster 1.5. But with Special Booster 1.0 having 20 SRs, that means it's going to be a little bit harder to get the specific card that you want, whereas in Special Booster 1.5, there's 10 SRs, so it's going to be a little bit easier to get the specific card that you want. So this doesn't mean you're necessarily going to want to buy less product, it just means it's going to be easier to get what you need. But depending on how available the product is, and what cards are going to be played more than others, that's going to help set and dictate the price of what these cards are going to end up being and what they're going to be performing at. So hopping over to TCG Player, just as a general metric, we could see everything that has been selling in Special Booster 1.0, and we see some pre-sale data for Special Booster 1.5. So as we can see with Special Booster 1.0, for the most part, the market has been kind of starting to stabilize, and it has been finding where things are going to be settling out at. And as we can see, a lot of the alt arts are going to be the highest value cards. So I see that is not going to change in Special Booster 1.5, just because we are going to have a higher prevalence of all of the SRs, meaning that there's just going to be more attention on the alt art cards, because those are going to be harder to pull than some of the other SRs. But we can also start to see what SRs have some more attention to based on playability and popularity. But right now, as we see with a lot of pre-sale prices, we could tell that they're going to be really, really overinflated because we just didn't exactly know how the pull rates are going to affect how the cards are going to be forming. And we also don't know the overall stocking quantity. So a lot of the early pre-sale sellers were kind of just trying to capitalize on the fact that we don't know this information and sell early. So a lot of these pre-sale prices are going to be rather on the high side, and because we know that they're going to be more accessible and more available. And even though 1.0 is in a relatively low supply, 1.5 might not be. We don't exactly know. But the fact that these cards are going to be easier to get means that they should hold a relatively lower price. But like I said, that's not going to be necessarily true depending on the card that we're looking at. So something like a Shine Greymon is definitely going to be a more popular card and a more in-demand card, and he was currently pre-sale selling for $25, so he might actually be going up in price when more stock comes and hits the secondary market, just because more people are going to be trying to buy him up, and as more people try to buy him up, his price is going to increase just because there's becoming less and less available and more people want to pick up the card and play the card. So something like Shine is an example where maybe he's going to go up in price, or maybe he's just going to stay at that $25 price range just because the supply might actually be able to meet the demand for the card, and the price might reflect that. But here's an example of a card where we know it's not going to perform very well in the competitive environment, and therefore there's not going to be a whole lot of attention to pick up the card. So this card definitely will not be able to hold this type of price, and the pre-sale sellers are only trying to hold this type of a price just because of, again, the lack of information and the fear of missing out, and just a whole bunch of the previous reasons why I laid out before. But this goes to show why you generally shouldn't be pre-ordering cards, just because the prices are usually going to be a lot higher than the initial price when they get released. So I'm expecting a card like this to probably hit that $3 to $5 range, just because that's where a lot of the underperforming SRs from Special Booster 1.0 settled at. And again, those cards having a lower pull rate means that they were harder to get, and if they're already performing that poorly, then something like this should perform just as bad, if not worse, as long as it's not really seeing any competitive play. And then when it comes to the secret rares, they're probably going to perform very similar to the last time we saw secret rares, where because these are going to be a little bit harder to pull than your average SR, they're generally going to hold a higher price tag. But again, the more playable ones are going to be even more expensive, where the less playable ones should relatively be less expensive, and their prices will settle and reflect that in the future. But taking a look at what they're doing, basically they're just kind of mirroring almost what they did beforehand, where it's just like, yes, the more playable ones are going to be more expensive. So Beelzemon is a relatively played one from Special Booster 1.0, and Imperial Dramon is going to see a similar level of play, where if you're playing this style of deck, then you need to have this card, and then he's just really, really good for the overall deck. I don't exactly know why the alternate art was pre-selling lower than the normal art, but regardless, it just shows that the more played and more popular ones are going to have a higher price and dictate as such, where the not so played ones are going to have a lower overall price. So something like a Black War Greymon, while he was pre-selling at about 40 bucks, he's just not going to be a very good playable card, so he's probably going to end up settling around the $15 to $20 range when everything is said and done. Where I think the higher priced ones are going to be anywhere from $50 to $100 just because they're harder to pull and they are definitely more in demand, and that will just help influence the price on top of the overall stock of the product. So to kind of wrap things up, I definitely am really happy that Special Booster 1.5 is going to be seeing the exact same pull rates as Special Booster 1.0, just because the change in quantity of SRs means that they could have actually lowered the pull rate, but it's good that they're not, just because it'll make these cards definitely a lot easier to get a hold of, and that means it'll be a lot easier to make and build your decks if you're getting into sealed product and opening sealed product. And then that could also reflect on the secondary market, where these cards are going to be a little bit cheaper just because there's going to be more of them around, just because their pull rates are a lot easier to get from. So I could be completely underestimating the supply of it, and if the supply is relatively low, even though these cards are easier to pull, they're still just very, very playable cards, and you still need to pick up a lot of these cards in order to have very strong competitive decks. So that might actually make the cards increase in price, but we won't know exactly what's going to happen until the set is actually released, and that's when we'll get a better picture of what the secondary market is doing and how these cards are going to be performing on the secondary market. So if you're still thinking about exactly how much you should be buying of Special Booster 1.5, I think the magic number is still going to be around 3 to 4 boxes, just because of how the pull rates are shaping up. It means that you could see a playset of any particular SR in 3 to 4 boxes, depending on how your pulls go, and then you still want to see a lot of the rares, so 3 to 4 boxes should get you a playset of almost every single rare. Again, we're not entirely sure until we see like the case ratios, but it's definitely looking like 3 to 4 boxes is definitely a good solid number to pick up. And again, the majority of the money is going to be in the secret rares and the alt arts, just because those cards are going to be harder to pull. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.